This is Research Like a Pro, Episode 6, Research Planning. Welcome to Research Like a Pro, a genealogy podcast about taking your research to the next level, hosted by Nicole Dyer and Diana Elder, accredited genealogy professional. Diana and Nicole are the mother-daughter team at FamilyLocket.com and the creators of the Amazon best-selling book, Research Like a Pro, a Genealogist Guide. I'm Nicole, co-host of the podcast. Join Diana and me as we discuss how to stay organized, make progress in our research, and solve difficult cases. Let's go. Hello, and welcome to Episode 6, Research Planning. I'm Nicole.
Hi, everybody. I'm Diana. I have some exciting announcements. We have 2 more weeks to register for the study group, which is $160, and the e-course, which is $99. So after August 31st, then these won't be available for several months. So if you're interested, just jump right in and see what you can do. The ebook will be half off for $99 all through the month of August. And we're excited to announce that we're going to be at BYU Education Week all week long. Nicole and I are teaching a class called the Genealogy Research Process. So follow us on Instagram and Twitter to see what we're up to at Ed Week. Nicole's handle is at Family Locket. Mine is at Diana Elder 11 for Twitter. And then Instagram, you can find us at Family Locket or Diana S. Elder. So other exciting announcements are that we just got word that we will both be presenting at Roots Tech again in 2019. Nicole is doing a class titled Organize Your Genealogy Research with Google Drive. And I'm doing 2 classes, Research Logs, a key to organizing your family history, and the FamilySearch Catalog, a researcher's best friend. So we're really excited to be back at Roots Tech and to share some of our exciting ideas about how to do better family history and genealogy.
I'm excited for Roots Tech and Education Week. It's going to be fun. Conferences are always really exciting because we get to network and see everyone and learn, and then also share some of the things that we like to teach. So it's great. Well, let's jump into today's topic, which is research planning. Before you do a research plan, you have already done a research objective and analyzed your previously located sources and created a locality guide. So once you've done those 3 things, you're ready to make a research plan. So can you tell us, what is a research plan?
Well, I think a research plan is one of the key elements that we're often missing in our genealogy research. So here's a scenario if you don't use a research plan. You open up your computer and you think of an ancestor and you go start looking on Ancestry and you click in the same records that you've been looking at for years and still not finding what you wanted. And you just sometimes feel like you're going in circles, or if you find a new website, then you immediately start searching in that, but you're not really doing a planned approach. So with a research plan, you actually figure out what you want to find. That's your research objective. And then you think about where you're going to find that answer. So for instance, if you want to find the marriage of your great-great-grandparents, you're not going to go look in records that won't have any marriage details, such as, well, a census maybe could, but it's not going to be an actual marriage record. Instead, you're going to identify specific record collections that should have a marriage record in them. So having a research plan and following it is key to being a professional genealogist. And you know, if you want to aspire to research like a pro, then it's something that you can do, and you will love it once you start to discipline yourself to follow a plan.
So as a professional, when do you use the plan? Do you send that to your clients before you start working on the plan, or how does that typically work?
What I do with the client, sometimes a client or, we as individuals don't know specifically what we want to have found. And so what I usually try to do is narrow down the objective. I try to just figure out really clearly what we are looking for. Are we trying to find the next generation back? Are we trying to find information about the children? Try to really clarify that. And I don't really share my research plan with the client. Once we have the objective down, we have the research goal, then I just make that myself and use that as my plan to do all the research. So the key thing with the client is figuring out that objective. So with ourselves, that's also the key thing, is figuring out our objective, because once that's set and written down, then it's not very hard to make the plan. It's actually really fun to make the plan.
Well, that's awesome that you're so experienced with planning. I feel like it's been hard for me to learn how to do it, but now that I've kind of figured some of it out, it's making it a lot easier. I had a client project that I was doing, one of my first ones, a few months ago, and I wanted to make sure that I was searching for what she wanted. So I sent her my research plan and said, here's what I would do for you, and let me know if you kind of approve of it. And it helped me gain a little bit of confidence that I was doing what she was paying me for. So in that way, it helped me.
Yeah, that's a good idea. I actually like that a lot. So that might be really helpful in some client projects to say, this is exactly what I'm going to search, and make sure that they're on board with that. So that is a good idea.
What do you do if your client doesn't give you an objective? They just say, I want to know everything about this ancestor.
Well, that gets a little bit trickier. That's when I start looking at everything I can find that they already have assembled. Often a client will have documents, and they'll have an ancestry tree often, and they'll say everything's just up on the ancestry tree. And so, go see what you can figure out. And so then I have to go through the steps, just like we talked about previously, of going through all the information, the documents, making a timeline. I have to do that for myself because I don't know their family. I have got to go through and find the information and wrap my head around what's been found. And then sometimes once I've done that, then things kind of start to open up, and I can think, oh, okay, so we can search. Let's search for a parent because there's enough information here. I think we could go ahead and do a parent search. And other times there's just not enough, and I have to find more about that individual and really identify the individual first. So if I don't have a clear objective from a client, then I do my best to look at the information and come up with an objective.
That would be tough. We'd always know what we want to find from our own research,
Yeah.
But trying to figure out what another person wants can be difficult. Good job.
Yep.
Well, I asked our Facebook group, Research Like a Pro, which is a private Facebook group for those who have purchased our book, Research Like a Pro, a Genealogist Guide, and those who are part of the e-course and study group. So we've got a fun group there to discuss these principles. And I asked them last week about research planning to get some questions and comments about it. So I said, what questions do you have about creating a research plan? How has it helped you? If you haven't been doing research planning, why not? So here are some of the responses that we got. So one person said, I've been inconsistent with my research plan, which means my research has been scattered, and I'm redoing some things that I haven't documented well. I need more working smarter, not harder, in this exercise. I liked that because I think a lot of us work really hard to find everything we can about an ancestor, but if we worked smarter and came up with a prioritized list of record groups that would contain the answer to our objective, often we'll find the answer much quicker and we don't have to work as hard.
And I like that she said, or he said, that they're redoing things they haven't documented well. And that's really key. We really don't want to be redoing searches. So, that's why this whole process helps save us time, because we're not redoing things that we've done before.
Right. That same person also mentioned in another comment that one time they had been researching for their great-grandfather's marriage information for several hours. But then after that, someone pointed out that a copy of his marriage certificate had been uploaded to FamilySearch Memories already, and he hadn't checked that. So he was really frustrated.
Oh my goodness, that's so funny. That reminds me of when I searched for years for my great-grandparents' marriage record in Texas. And then one day it was a hint on FamilySearch. So sometimes those things, we just have to look at them as little fortuitous happenings, right? Not be upset about all the years we searched and didn't find it. Oh, that's
right.
awesome.
Well, hopefully going through the process of analyzing what we already know would have turned up that marriage certificate. And don't forget to check the photos and stories that are uploaded to people. Those are also sources. So that was a good reminder. Another person said, that they like research plans because it keeps them on track and helps them to not follow all the shiny objects. And using a research plan has helped her accomplish much more. And I feel the same. I totally agree with that one. Another person says that they had never focused on a single question until taking the Research Like a Pro study group. And her research plan was more along the lines of find out everything possible about John. So then she says that when she tried defining just a single question and making a prioritized list of records to check in the research plan made all the difference for her. So I think part of it, what a research plan does, is eliminate some of the overwhelming feelings of trying to find everything you can. If you have a specific finite question with a specific finite list of records to check, then you can make more progress.
Oh, it does make all the difference. It helps you go deeper rather than wider. And for some of these tough things, we have to go really deep. So we can be tempted to go wide if we're not really focused. And then we feel like we've done everything there is to do because we've been searching so much. But it's not until we focus in and go deep that we might find the answer or the right record.
That's true. There's one more that I want to read, comment from the Facebook group. This person says, I'll write a research plan and then end up following bright, shiny objects until I get involved. And then I will write a new research plan, and it's a never-ending cycle. So sometimes we can't avoid following those bright, shiny objects, but that highlights one of the parts of a research plan that's important, which is flexibility. Sometimes you find something that changes where you want to search next, and you can just go create a new research plan, and that's fine.
Yep. We have to remember it is just a cycle. That's exactly what this is. And the great thing is that once you get the process down, it does become easier and easier, unless you get an objective from a client that's really huge, and then it's tricky. But we have control over our own objectives, so nobody should have that problem. So let's go through the research plan. There's specific ways to do this. And if you've purchased the book, then you know that you've got a template that is on Family Locket that you can use. And I love this template. I use this document. It's called a research project document, and I use it in all of my projects because it just reminds me, even though I've done this many, many times, it reminds me of what I need to do. And sometimes we can get focused and we can get a little bit off track, and then we look at our document and go, okay, now I know what to do. So the 5 steps are pretty simple. What do we have first? The objective. So that objective is written at the top. You know what you're looking for really succinctly. It tells you about your individual, their birth, marriage, death, spouse, whatever you put in your objective. And then we do a summary of known facts. Then we do a hypothesis, a list of sources to search, and a prioritized strategy. So we're going to go through each one of those and kind of give some examples of how to fill out those different sections that help us with our research planning.
Yes, I'm glad you remembered to talk about the project document. We actually have that available to everyone, not just those who have purchased the book. If you go to my blog post, doing a genealogy research project from start to finish, then you can get access to that. And we'll put a link in the show notes also. But it is really helpful when you are going through the steps of your research plan to just follow the template. So like Diana said, the first step is to state your objective with key identifying information. So you've already done that. You've created an objective. Just need to put it into your research plan or your research project document. And this is a point in the project where you can review your objective and tweak it if you need to, because you have gone over everything that you know, and you may find that you already know some more details that can help you pinpoint in your objective exactly what you want to do. So check your objective and make sure that it's the way you want it, and change it if you need to, because your objective is really important in guiding your research plan. So Diana, do you want to share your example of Cynthia Royston?
I will. And before I do that, it was kind of funny because I think it was our last study group that someone, after they had set an objective and then had reviewed all their research, doing that totally gave them the answer to their research question. It was so funny. It was right there in their documents they already had. So they had to set a new objective because they'd already solved their problem without going all the way through the process. So good things can happen when you review previous research. So my example about Cynthia Dillard Royston, I've been searching for years. This is one of my brick walls I talk about all the time, trying to find her father. And so I was going to do a big project to find her father, but I had already assembled a lot of information about the suspect, George W. Dillard. And so I decided for my last study group project to just have my hypothesis be, and I'll read it to you. The objective of this research project is to determine if George W. Dillard, born 1781 in Virginia and died 1854 in Lee County, Alabama, is the father of Cynthia Dillard. So I could have, said who is the father of Cynthia Dillard, but I wanted to be sure I was comparing information I had about Cynthia and this George W. Dillard. So that became my objective, to see if he was her father. So that made a whole different project by just having that objective be tweaked with that information.
Yes, it's more specific. And so it will definitely help you narrow down what records to look at, right?
Absolutely. And I was not able to completely prove it. So I think I will, for my next objective for the next study group, I think I might take one of the other individuals that's a possible and maybe try to disprove that individual. Because if I can disprove everybody else, that's a possibility, then that lends one more, little piece of evidence to George being the father if everybody else is disproved. So that's what I'm leaning towards for my next project.
Great.
Okay, so after we've got that objective tweaked and we're feeling pretty good about the objective based on all the previous timelines, analysis of information, now it's time to summarize the known facts. So sometimes people say, isn't this the same as your timeline? Well, not really, because you've got your timeline, that's everything you know. And I like to just make a simple little summary, and I do this in a table format where I will just put a column for the date, a column for the place, for the event, and then just simply a little bit about why I know that. So, for example, I have an estimate of a birth date for Cynthia Dillard, and so I put in there I think it's 1815 in Georgia. And then I just put a little in my summary column. I put something like, the censuses are all different, but this appears to be the best estimate that I can make based on the censuses. And so I don't do any source citations in this. This is purely for my own information. This is where I'm just trying to get my head around all the information I found and just do a nice little summary of what I know and how I know it. So when I was doing Cynthia and George, I actually did a separate known facts for both because I wanted to be able to compare them. And then I connected those. So for instance, Cynthia is born 1815 in Georgia. So what men are on the 1820 census with a 5-year-old female in their household? And so, I'd already decided that was George. And so I was able to connect those two facts. This is why he's a possibility, because he has the daughter in the household. And this is when she was born in Georgia. Does that make sense, Nicole?
That does make sense. I really like doing the summary of known facts. It's kind of like a conclusion to your timeline and the beginning of your research plan. You're just kind of, putting each known fact. I know sometimes you've listed your known facts as like a numbered list even. And there's different ways to do it. One project I did, I made a table with just 2 columns, the fact on the left and then the source on the right. And I didn't put the full citation, just kind of to remind me which source, like 1850 census is where I got the birth date, just to help guide the creation of your research plan. So it's good to do it.
And as I'm doing research, I refer back to that all the time because it just helps me to remember what's going on. So I go back to that little summary of known facts often. And I will go back to my timeline also, but sometimes it's the summary of known facts. It's just right there. And that I use that a lot as I'm researching.
Yeah, sometimes the timeline can get kind of messy. So it's nice to have a very succinct and simple statement of each fact that's applicable to the current project. And I think it helps the client too, because I keep it in the report for them so they can see what I started with. Here's all the facts I had at the beginning, then here's the conclusions that I added to those at the end.
Yeah, I think that's very helpful. We have to remember our clients may know their families well, but sometimes their organization of their documents is not so great. And so they may not have figured out some of these known facts that we have pulled from the documents. And so it is helpful for them too to see exactly what's known about their ancestor.
Right. Okay, so the next step is to create a working hypothesis. So you look at all of your facts and then you form an educated guess about what might have been using the clues from the facts. And this is a fun part of the research plan because typically when you are researching a family like this so in depth, you do have guesses and hypotheses about what you think happened. So you get to kind of just do a brain dump and write it all out, and then you can kind of narrow it down. And when you get it all out on paper, then it helps you to see what you would need to do to either prove or disprove that hypothesis. How are you going to test that hypothesis? And then you come up with a strategy or a methodology that you can use to test it. So maybe you would want to use a search of the census to test it, or study the land records. I know Diana has done a land study in her research project with Cynthia Dillard, and it was quite involved and very interesting.
It was really interesting because I had gathered up all these land records, and I just knew that George Dillard had given some land to Cynthia and Thomas Royston, and that would be my connecting point. But when I put it all together in a table and studied it, there was no connection. So, sometimes we have a hypothesis that it doesn't pan out, but that's okay. We have to stop, feeling bad about that and just say, okay, well, they were not connected through the land. That doesn't mean he's not her father. It just wasn't how, I'm going to prove this. So, when you're doing your hypothesis, try to be specific. Here was my working hypothesis about George Dillard. I just simply put it out there. George W. Dillard is the father of Cynthia Dillard. His household contains a female of the appropriate age on the 1820 and 1830 census enumerations. And then I go on to talk about how Cynthia got married in 1833, and the reason that there's no marriage record is because that county courthouse burned in 1838, destroying all the records. So I'm not sure about this. I am hypothesizing here, which is what I like to do. I don't have to prove anything here. This is just my ideas. And then I talk about how they migrated into Alabama. They're just a county away in 1850. And so it's just kind of helping me understand why I think he's her father. I'm, like Nicole said, a brain dump. I'm putting all my ideas into this working hypothesis. It's going to help me know what to search. So the next thing to do is to find sources to search. And Nicole, what's your favorite way to find sources to search?
I usually go to my locality guide first because I've listed all the different record groups there that pertain to the locality I'm researching in.
Yeah, so your locality guide, that's why we do the locality guide, because if you've completed that step, you have all sorts of ideas. And generally when people do the locality guide, they're really excited to start researching because they have identified so many new sources to solve their research question. So now you're going to go look at that locality guide again and start to think about which specific records are going to either prove or disprove your hypothesis. And if you don't have a locality guide, or if you maybe didn't get enough records into your locality guide, this is a good time to go add some. Let's say that I wanted to look for marriage records for Thomas and Cynthia Royston, even though I think I've looked before. I can, if I didn't have marriage records identified in my locality guide, I could certainly go over to the catalog on FamilySearch or the catalog on Ancestry, do a Google search, and see if there's some marriage records I can add to my locality guide. And then that can be sources that I want to search.
That's good. What if somebody is a beginner and they're not sure what records are even available? What can they do?
Well, this is why I am doing a presentation on the FamilySearch catalog, a researcher's best friend, because honestly, it's such a good place to figure out what records are available. So if you go to the FamilySearch Research Wiki, you'll get ideas of records, but you can also just do a place search. You could do a locality search. For instance, I could put in Russell, Alabama in the place search in the FamilySearch catalog, and then I'm going to come up with all of these different kinds of records that the FamilySearch catalog has for that locality. And the great thing is so many of those are available online now. No longer do you have to come to the Family History Library to find those records. They're digitized, they're on FamilySearch, you have links to them, and it will give you an idea of what's available for that county. So that's a really good place to start. The FamilySearch Research Wiki and the FamilySearch catalog to just know what is available for your locality.
That's good. And another thing that happens over time is that you just become more familiar. So it does take some trial and error and practice and experience to kind of learn what sources are out there. But now that there's so many online, like you said, it becomes a lot easier.
It does. And so we have to remember that if you're just beginning, you just do your best. And then as you learn and get more experience, you might want to go back and revisit some earlier projects to see if you've learned more and now things will make more sense to you. We all have to start somewhere. You know, you and I started, Nicole, and we were just searching the censuses. I remember we'd go to the Family History Library and we'd go to our county and look up the index of every book to see if it had our surname. You know, we had so much fun doing that. We really didn't know what we were doing, but we were learning. We were learning what kind of records were available. We were getting our feet wet. So you just have to jump in and get your feet wet sometimes.
It was really fun. But now when we go to the Family History Library, we actually make so many more discoveries. It's amazing.
Yeah, we do. We've improved. Yep.
So the next step after identifying and making a big list of all the different possible sources to search, next, you need to prioritize which sources to search first. So in the last study group, I had a lot of fun with this step. I really wanted to come up with a very good research strategy. And I looked at not only which records were most likely to tell me the answer to my research question, but which records were more accessible to me. And so I had a few collections that were digitized and I could access from home. And then I had some that were on microfilm at the Family History Library, so I couldn't really go get them. I would have to ask Diana to go get them. And then I had some that were digitized, but they were behind a paywall. So I had to either get a subscription to that website or something. So I kind of made a list of, this one is going to answer my question, but it's really hard to get to. So I'm going to put it as number 3, because if I can number 1, if I can search this online database and it has the answer, then I won't need to do number 3. So I tried to consider a lot of different aspects of the source, accessibility and likelihood to answer my question. So once I did that, I was able to make a list of which ones to do first. And then I just started going through the list. And I'll have to be honest, it's really hard to wait until you're done making your prioritized list
to start researching.
To start searching them, especially if they're really easy to search and all you have to do is type in your ancestor's name. So what should we do, Diana, if we accidentally lose our discipline?
And I guarantee we will all do that at some point in time. It's okay. Just keep on going. I mean, if you decide you want to do number 3 first, then do number 3. Put it in your research log and then go back to number 1. So we do this to help ourselves. And if we sometimes want to jump ahead, that's okay. So I was just going to say prioritizing is so important because, oh my goodness, I did a project one time and I spent all this time looking in the census records for a family and putting together all the family information. This was a client project. And then I decided to go check probate. And this was in my early days of doing work for other people. My people are not mentioned in the probate much. And so I hadn't learned that probate is one of the things you should check first, just to do a quick check. And there was a probate record. I should have just had that number 1 because there it listed all the family relationships and it gave me so much information I'd kind of put together through the censuses, but it was just spelled out in the probate. So I've now learned, check probate first. If there's nothing there, then go right on to number 2. It just comes with experience. And we have different scenarios. So, if it doesn't work out, then you just chalk it up to experience. Okay, next time I'll check probate first.
Right. But there are some ways that you can improve your knowledge about what a source might contain. One of those is indexing. FamilySearch volunteer indexing allows you to get more familiar with different record types. And also just watching webinars and reading about different kinds of records. We like to watch the Legacy Family Tree webinars, and there's so many different options there. And you can even watch them for free if you register and watch them on the day or within the week that they come out. So those are some really great ways to learn about what a source might have in it and what it's going to be like.
Right. And there's also some really good books that can help you. So if you're researching in Ireland and it's a new location for you, I would definitely watch all the webinars on Ireland, but then maybe want to invest in a really good beginning Irish research book. We have a lot of resources now. And so, kind of explore all the different ways you can learn more about the records in your locality. It's going to give you a jump start in researching there.
That's good. Yeah. In your prioritized research strategy, you should make sure that you include links to the places where you're going to research, even if it's just a link to the library catalog listing for that microfilm. But it will help you a lot in the research phase to have the links there. And another thing to remember is to always check the online collections first, because those are going to be the easiest, especially if they are indexed.
Right. And if you're looking at the FamilySearch catalog, like I mentioned before, down in the bottom left-hand corner of the screen, it has a little place where you can click in the circle that says online and then update, and it will show just the records that are online, so that really quickly it will prioritize for you what you could find online from the catalog. So I didn't discover that until just a few months ago, or I think they just actually put that up a few months ago, which saves a lot of time. So I wholeheartedly agree. Check online resources first. Get through the quick stuff first, because your answer might be waiting there for you. Okay, so what is our assignment for this time? Create a research plan. So if you are following along with us and doing this on your own, open up that research project document. I'm glad you remembered, Nicole, that we have a link to that on the website. And get your objective down, reword it if you need to, do your working hypothesis, and then identify the sources to search from your locality guide. And then prioritize. And when you're finished, you have a working research plan. Some people will say, how many things should I put in there? And I like to say, don't do a huge research plan. Don't do like 20 things, because what if you spend all this time doing 20 things and your answer's found in like step number 2? So at the most, I like to do about 5 steps. And then if I get through all 5, then I can reevaluate and maybe add 5 more if I still haven't found my answer.
That's right. They're so flexible. I mean, we can just really edit these and change them as we go. They have to be fluid, because every time we check something, we will find something. Whether or not we find what we want or not is up in the air, but we're either going to find the answer or not. And that will lead us to maybe search a different collection.
Right. And yeah, so it's all good. We're making whatever you can do to stay focused and to be more thorough in your planning is going to reap a lot of benefits.
Well, great. That concludes our episode today about research planning. I hope you guys enjoyed learning about the steps for planning your research. And good luck on this week's assignment, and we'll talk to you next week.
Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye-bye. Thank you for listening to Research Like a Pro with Diana Elder, accredited genealogy professional, and Nicole Dyer. We hope that something you heard today will help you make progress in your own genealogy research. If you like what you heard, please leave us a review on iTunes or Stitcher, or visit our website, FamilyLocket.com, to contact us. You can find our book, Research Like a Pro, A Genealogist Guide, on Amazon.com and other booksellers. We hope you'll start now to research like a pro.